first thing you want to do when you're pouring over tile is you want to go ahead and abrade the surface. Right here we're using 30 grit metal bonds to abrade it. You just want to make sure that your red guard and your concrete get as good as bond as possible to the floor. Normally we would just use our bigger 150 grinding machine, but here we are using our smaller 3-headed mini just to show you how you can do a decent sized floor without having to use large equipment. However, doing anything much larger than this room, bigger equipment is really ideal. You want to make sure that you tape off the baseboard and plastic up about 3 to 4 feet on the walls. We didn't plastic these walls because these walls are going to be painted. Now we're ready to red guard the tile. You want to make sure that you're very liberal with this coat of red guard. You want to make sure that it gets down into the grooves of the grout so that you won't have any problems with shadowing after you pour the ElastoCrete. You can even water down the red guard just a little bit, and that'll just help it go a lot further for you. Now we're ready to cut and seat down the mesh. You might have your own method to do this, but we find that one method that works really well is to seat the mesh down flat and put down another thin coat of red guard on the floor, and then get a weed burner with a very light flame. You don't ever need to pull the trigger, and then you just carefully and quickly want to heat up the mesh on top of the fresh red guard. Step on it and it will seat down fantastically. You just really want to make sure that there are no bubbles in the mesh. If you have bubbles in the mesh and you go to pour your concrete, that'll go right through the concrete and will be poking off the top. You also want to make sure that the mesh has at least a 2-inch overlap when it's on top of each other. You can create a barrier or a stop point with a lot of different materials, but in this case we're just using some 3/8 inch plastic molding with some double-sided tape to seat it down. Now we're all ready to mix up and pour our concrete. Again, normally we would just use our Make-A-Nex or Hippo mixer to do 4 kits at once, but we're trying to show you the most cost-effective way to do this job. If you're doing a job much larger than this one, using a bigger mixer is definitely the way to go. Right here we're just using 2 large bins and putting in 2 kits in each bin. Each kit we're doing has 25 pounds of pool sand and 25 pounds of 30 grit silica sand. We already have all of our sands measured out before we pour. So we're going for kind of a barnwood brown gray floor, so we're going to do a mix of 2 different colors to be able to achieve this look. One color is a lighter brown llama wool pigment and the other color is a darker gauntlet gray pigment. Now after we have these all mixed up, we want to give it some sweat in time in the bucket for about 5 to 10 minutes to help it get a little bit more fluid. To achieve the look that we want, you want to do about a 1-to-1 ratio with our 2 base colors. Pour those into a single bucket, making it about 3/4 of the way full, and lightly mix those colors together. And then we want to shoot in and lightly mix in about 30 ounces of white pigment on top to be able to get our desired effect when we dump it out on the floor. Then you want to pour out the material on the floor and then gauge rake it out about 3/8 inch thick, then give it a light blow with your blower to totally level it out smooth. When you're blowing the material, you want to work it very fast in a circular motion just to make sure that everything stays nice and even. Now on this floor, we aren't going to do a full grind. We're going to do what we call a leathered finish, so it will have just a little bit of natural texture. This is the fastest way to get flooring jobs done. So all we want to do is take off that light cream that comes up to the surface. You want to take that off by doing a quick pass of the 100 grit diamonds and then a quick pass with the flooring stripper pad. You want to hit all of your edges and underneath the toe kick with a single-headed grinder using the stripping pads. Now you want to mask off the baseboard again to prep for the sealer. Make sure to vacuum and clean the floor thoroughly before you do your sealer. Now you want to mix up all of your super prime, delint all of your rollers, and pour the material out in a roller tray and start rolling it out from there. And we're using a 3/8 inch delinted nap roller to apply this sealer. After you have waited about 2 hours or so, or until the super prime is dry enough to walk on, we are all ready to mix up our top coat sealer. For this floor, we're going to mix up and use our matte SX sealer, which is an epoxy siloxane sealer. If you would like, we have more in-depth videos on this sealer and how to mix it up. Now on this sealer, you're able to pour it out directly onto the concrete, and you want to make sure that you get it rolled out nice and even and get it rolled out about 2 to 3 mils thickness. And we're using a 3/8 inch delinted nap roller to apply this sealer.